Okay, so in this video, we are doing an initial review of the all-new Apple Watch Ultra. Let's go ahead and jump in. All right, so the reason for that title is because I've heard more than a few people say things like, well, there goes Apple again, scamming people into buying expensive, luxurious stuff that they don't need. Now, on one hand, that could be true, but on the other, the targeted crowd may not see it the same way, right? So the crowd that this watch is supposed to be made for may not see it in the same light. But let's go ahead and leave that behind while I give you a quick disclaimer. This, I find impressive. This is new, this is innovative, and I get very excited about things like this. With all of that being said, I will always do my best to give you substance and remain objective. And with the disclaimer out of the way now, it is extremely clear to me that the Apple Watch Ultra was never designed or never built with the average user in mind. But Apple is just so good at mind tricks, and because of that, they essentially still made it so that they can sell it to the average user. That's just how good they are. That's just their genius, right? I mean, look at the way the commercials are tailored. Let me just put it this way. The majority of people that I see buying the Apple Watch Ultra, which by the way is literally sold out everywhere, the majority of those people are people who barely step in the gym or embark in physical activities throughout the year, but yet they just feel so compelled to go out there and buy this watch. Let's talk about design. Honestly, when I first saw this thing here during the announcement, I was so uneasy about it. I was just picturing it in my head as too big, it's not gonna fit well, it's gonna be too heavy, but I have grown to actually like this thing. Sure, it still is big, just like I anticipated, but on my arm, and I don't have particularly large wrists, right? But it fits so well and it feels light. I'm not sure if it's the band. I have this orange alpine loop here, and it feels just right. You can't even tell that it's there, but when you look at it, it's as if you're holding a small smartphone. It's just so huge and it's just so rugged. The looks of it, you know, with all of these very rugged edges, even the crown there looks big with those ridges, but when you are using it, when you're scrolling, it feels so freaking smooth, just buttery smooth as you're navigating through the display there. But anyways, let's continue with design. On the right side of the watch there, you have kind of a block there, and that gives it an even more rugged look. And that block does contain then the crowd and one button right below that. On the left hand side, you do have an action button, and above that you do have a speaker grill. Now, unlike your typical Apple watches, you would get a 3-mic array, right? So you have 3 mics around the watch there, made to pick up even more sound, right? But it's been my experience that talking to people, you know, over the phone or through the watch here, if I turn my face away as I'm speaking to them, then they have a hard time hearing me. So this is, even though it has 3 mics, it still calls for you to come closer in order for them to be able to hear you better, right? So if your arm is too far, I have very long arms, and when my arm is just like by my side and I'm talking, they can hear me, but it's not as clear according to the parties that I was talking to. And of course, the watch is not made to be used that way. If you're using it as a, as a phone, as a communication device, right? You're not going to be talking while just swinging your arms. So you're still going to be bringing it up and talking to the person. So as long as you have it kind of reasonable distance from your mouth and you are looking in the general direction of where the watch is, people should be able to clearly hear you. And in terms of the speaker, of course, I find them pretty impressive, right? So I'm able to clearly hear people when they're talking to me. And still sticking with those speakers, they get really loud, especially when in relation to like crash detection or those SOS features, or when you activate that siren, right? It gets super, super loud. I'm pretty sure you've heard about it so far. It gets really, really loud. And I feel this is a feature that is crucial for people who are actually making use of this specific watch in the type of environments that watches like this one, you know, the Garmin's of the world, the Phoenixes of the world, where those watches are typically used. Right? So rugged terrain, people who go mountain climbing and just ultra marathon and so forth. I feel this is a feature that would be very practical in those types of environment. Battery, of course, is one of the reasons people are going for this watches, especially people who are already, you know, in the Apple ecosystem, right? Because these are people who were typically used to about a day of battery life on their Apple Watches. Just like I had with my Apple Watch 7, I was getting about a day if that. So I would imagine that for someone, which would also make sense why a lot of these people who don't necessarily go out there mountain climbing and all that stuff are buying this watch, right? So many of them are buying this not necessarily because they will be, indulging in these very extreme sports, but essentially the main reason seems to be battery life, at least for most people that I hear talk about this. But anyway, so battery life on here has been very impressive, especially if you're comparing that to, the Apple Watch 6, the Apple Watch 7, and the 8. But anyway, when I first got mine, I didn't even start wearing it immediately. I first plugged it in, to make sure that it hits 100% before I can, start using it, so that I can literally gauge to see how long it takes me to go through the 100%. And of course, this is always going to be subjective, right? So the way I use my Apple Watch is not going to be the same way you use yours. I'm getting roughly 3 days. At least that first round gave me about 3 days, right? A tiny bit over 3 days, and that was with me using the watch, working out moderately and going to sleep with the watch. So all of these slip sensors and the tracking features were on, and nothing really extreme, and I was getting roughly, I'm going to say roughly 3 days. Again, it will depending on how you use your watch here. Maybe you are deep into these extreme sports, so you may be seeing, less battery life. Or if you're not, if you're barely using your watch, you might actually see, longer battery life. In terms of all of the other tracking features, right? So whether it's just sleep tracking, all of the other sensors, heart rate, all of that good stuff, you essentially just get everything you'll be getting from the regular Apple Watch Series 8, right? Or even the Series 7, right? So obviously it has added features. The watch as a whole has added features on top of what you have on the regular, Series Series 8, Series 7, and so forth. Now let's go ahead and talk about the display, right? 2000 nits is just so ridiculous. It's essentially matching what you have with the new iPhone 14 Pro series, right? So it's extremely bright when you are outside. No matter how bright it is, whether it's under direct sunlight, you can still see everything clearly here. The size of the watch also makes it so that you don't lean towards grabbing your phone that often. So I get a lot of my notifications here, and I actually get to answer text messages and WhatsApp, things like that, directly on the watch, simply because it's just that big. So when people ring the doorbell, I can literally see a big picture of them downstairs. It's clear, you can see who it is. It is just so nice to have a display that is that large. It's not for everyone, right? So for people who have very small wrists, this thing might look off on your wrist. But anyway, my overall user experience on the all new Apple Watch Ultra here has been extremely positive. It's been very, very enjoyable. I really like this watch so far. It could be because I'm still in the honeymoon period, but it's definitely innovation. And again, I think Apple, is successful at their marketing campaign, right? This is made for people who are, into those extreme sports, but tons of regular people are buying this. A lot of them are going to tell you it's because of battery, right? But this thing is going to be so underused by those people. But I feel it's because of the way Apple advertised this, right? They made it look really cool so that the average person will want to go after that. And of course, it'll be kind of like a status symbol, right? For you to be, just like it typically is the case with a lot of, Apple devices, right? Which explains the whole green bubble, blue bubble war, that stupid war that people are in. But anyway, finally, of course, the last one I want to make in a review here before we break is that, it integrates very well with the Apple ecosystem, as you would imagine, right? Unlike it is the case with the Galaxy watches, you cannot use this with any other, operating system, right? So this is literally just to be used in the Apple ecosystem. So if you buy this, you better make sure that you have an Apple device that you're going to be connecting to this. Now, with all that being said, I'm going to continue to test this. I've only had it for about 4 or 5 days. I think 4 or 5 days. So I'm going to be testing this even more in the upcoming weeks and months and continue to share with you my take and how it's keeping up. I'm also going to compare this against the Samsung Galaxy Watch 5 Pro that I have here. But anyway, so that's just my take on the Apple Watch Ultra here. Do you have any questions? Are you planning on buying this? What do you think of my statement at the beginning there? But let me know with your questions in the comment section. I'm going to catch you in the comment section like I always do. Make sure to like, of course, subscribe if you didn't get the opportunity to do so. Make sure to share the video if you know anyone who will be interested or who is in the market for this watch. I'm going to catch you in the next video also. Up until that next video, of course, as always, stay safe out there.